What? Are you going? Pray, say everything that is kind to Countess G, on the part of her friend the vampire. And what message shall I convey to the Baroness? That, with her permission, I shall do myself the honor of paying my respects in the course of the evening. The third act had begun, and during its progress the Count of Mercer, according to his promise, made his appearance in the box of Madame Danglars. The Count of Mercer was not a person to excite either interest or curiosity in a place of public amusement. His presence, therefore, was wholly unnoticed, save by the occupants of the box in which he had just seated himself. The quick eye of Monte Cristo, however, marked his coming, and a slight though meaning smile passed over his lips. Haydée, whose soul seemed centered in the business of the stage, like all unsophisticated natures, delighted in whatever addressed itself to the eye or ear. The third act passed off as usual. Mademoiselle Noblet, Julie, and Leroux executed the customary pirouettes, Robert duly challenged the Prince of Granada, and the royal father of the Princess Isabella, taking his daughter by the hand, swept round the stage with majestic strides, the better to display the rich folds of his velvet robe and mantle. After which the curtain again fell, and the spectators poured forth from the theatre into the lobbies and salon. The Count left his box, and a moment later was saluting the Baronne Danglars, who could not restrain a cry of mingled pleasure and surprise. "You are welcome, Count," she exclaimed, as he entered. "I have been most anxious to see you, that I might repeat orally the thanks writing can so ill express. Surely so trifling a circumstance cannot deserve a place in your remembrance. Believe me, madam, I had entirely forgotten it. But it is not so easy to forget, monsieur, that the very next day after your princely gift you saved the life of my dear friend, Madame de Villefort, which was endangered by the very animals your generosity restored to me. This time, at least, I do not deserve your thanks. It was Ali, my Nubian slave, who rendered this service to Madame de Villefort. Was it Ali, asked the Count of Mercer, who rescued my son from the hands of bandits? No, Count, replied Monte Cristo, taking the hand held out to him by the general. In this instance I may fairly and freely accept your thanks, but you have already tendered them, and fully discharged your debt, if indeed there existed one, and I feel almost mortified to find you still reverting to the subject. May I beg of you, Baroness, to honor me with an introduction to your daughter? Oh, you are no stranger, at least not by name, replied Madame Danglars, and the last 2 or 3 days we have really talked of nothing but you. Eugenie, continued the Baroness, turning towards her daughter, this is the Count of Monte Cristo. The Count bowed, while Mademoiselle Danglars bent her head slightly. You have a charming young person with you tonight, Count, said Eugenie. Is she your daughter? No, mademoiselle, said Monte Cristo, astonished at the coolness and freedom of the question. She is a poor unfortunate Greek left under my care. And what is her name? Haiti, replied Monte Cristo. A Greek? Murmured the Count of Mercer. Yes, indeed, Count, said Madame Danglars, and tell me, did you ever see at the court of Ali Tepelini, whom you so gloriously and valiantly served, a more exquisite beauty or richer costume? Did I hear rightly, monsieur, said Monte Cristo, that you served at Yanina? I was Inspector General of the Pasha's troops, replied Mercer, and it is no secret that I owe my fortune, such as it is, to the liberality of the illustrious Albanese chief. But look! exclaimed Madame Danglars. Where? stammered Mercer. There, said Monte Cristo, placing his arms around the Count, and leaning with him over the front of the box, just as Haiti, whose eyes were occupied in examining the theatre in search of her guardian, perceived his pale features close to Mercer's face. It was as if the young girl beheld the head of Medusa. She bent forwards as though to assure herself of the reality of what she saw, then, uttering a faint cry, threw herself back in her seat. The sound was heard by the people about Ali, who instantly opened the box door. Why, Count, exclaimed Eugenie, what has happened to your ward? She seems to have been taken suddenly ill. Very probably, answered the Count. But do not be alarmed on her account. Haydée's nervous system is delicately organized, and she is peculiarly susceptible to the odors even of flowers, nay, there are some which cause her to faint if brought into her presence. However, continued Monte Cristo, drawing a small phial from his pocket, I have an infallible remedy. So saying, he bowed to the Baroness and her daughter, exchanged a parting shake of the hand with Debray and the Count, and left Madame Danglars' box. Upon his return to Haydée he found her still very pale. As soon as she saw him she seized his hand, her own hands were moist and icy cold. "Who was it you were talking with over there?" she asked. "With the Count of Mercer," answered Monte Cristo. "He tells me he served your illustrious father, and that he owes his fortune to him." "Wretch!" exclaimed Haydée, her eyes flashing with rage, "he sold my father to the Turks, and the fortune he boasts of was the price of his treachery." "Did not you know that, my dear lord?" "Something of this I heard in a papyrus," said Monte Cristo, "but the particulars are still unknown to me." "You shall relate them to me, my child. They are, no doubt, both curious and interesting." "Yes, yes, but let us go. I feel as though it would kill me to remain long near that dreadful man." So saying, Haydée arose, and wrapping herself in her burnous of white cashmere embroidered with pearls and coral, she hastily quitted the box at the moment when the curtain was rising upon the fourth act. "Do you observe," said the Countess G. to Albert, who had returned to her side, "that man does nothing like other people, he listens most devoutly to the third act of Robert le Diable, and when the fourth begins, takes his departure." Chapter 54. A Flurry in Stocks. Some days after this meeting, Albert de Mercer visited the Count of Monte Cristo at his house in the Champs-Élysées, which had already assumed that palace-like appearance which the Count's princely fortune enabled him to give even to his most temporary residences. He came to renew the thanks of Madame Danglars which had been already conveyed to the Count through the medium of a letter, signed Baronne Danglars, née Hermine de Servieux. Albert was accompanied by Lucien Debray, who, joining in his friend's conversation, added some passing compliments, the source of which the Count's talent for finesse easily enabled him to guess. He was convinced that Lucien's visit was due to a double feeling of curiosity, the larger half of which sentiment emanated from the Rue de la Chaussée d'Antin. In short, Madame Danglars, not being able personally to examine in detail the domestic economy and household arrangements of a man who gave away horses worth 30,000 francs and who went to the opera with a Greek slave wearing diamonds to the amount of 1,000,000 of money, had deputed those eyes, by which she was accustomed to see, to give her a faithful account of the mode of life of this incomprehensible person. But the Count did not appear to suspect that there could be the slightest connection between Lucien's visit and the curiosity of the Baroness. "You are in constant communication with the Baron Danglars?" the Count inquired of Albert de Morcerf. "Yes, Count. You know what I told you? All remains the same, then, in that quarter?"